Mark had never imagined that his first real adventure off Earth would land him in a city so strange, so foreign, that he could hardly recognize the reality around him. The vibrant colors of the alien architecture, the different creatures walking through the streets, and the bizarre mix of languages filled the air. He had signed up for the mission to assist with diplomatic relations and the sharing of technology between Earth and other worlds. But he hadn't expected that part of his job would involve encountering someone, so much more personal than he ever anticipated. He was walking through the marketplace of New Koro, a bustling city on the planet Tar, when he saw her, Zara. At first he thought she was just another bystander, sitting alone, blending in with the crowd. But when his eyes lingered on her, something about her caught his attention. She wasn't standing with the rest of the crowd or even chatting with anyone. She sat quietly in a wheelchair, her posture straight and proud, though her eyes were distant, almost lost in thought. Zara was an alien, yes, but not just any alien. She was a Tar, one of the planet's strongest and most respected species, known for their agility, resilience, and fierce leadership. But now Mark could see that strength was hidden beneath the weight of an invisible burden. Zara's wheelchair wasn't something she'd chosen. It was a result of an accident that had taken away her ability to walk, a cruel twist of fate that had left her paralyzed. But what struck Mark the most was the way the other Tar avoided her gaze, the way they whispered as they passed, the way they subtly moved away from her. Zara didn't belong to them anymore, not in their eyes. She had once been a leader, a warrior, someone to be admired, but now she was nothing more than a symbol of weakness. He felt his chest tighten at the sight, his instincts telling him that this wasn't right. She didn't deserve this. She was still someone, a person with a past, with feelings, with a story that mattered. So, without thinking, Mark walked over to her. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, offering a small smile. Zara looked up, startled, as if she hadn't expected anyone to approach her. Her violet eyes were filled with a quiet sadness, but they softened as she took in the sight of him. He was human, different, not like the others. There was something about the way he looked at her that made her feel, for just a moment, that maybe she wasn't invisible. "Go ahead," she replied quietly, her voice carrying a trace of skepticism but also a faint hope. "It's not like anyone else is sitting here." Mark smiled and took a seat beside her. "I'm not like the others," he said with a playful grin, "so you can count on me for a change." Zara raised an eyebrow, a flicker of a smile tugging at her lips. "Is that so?" "Absolutely," Mark replied, giving her a wink. "I'm Mark, by the way. I'm from Earth. Just here to make sure things don't go terribly wrong with all the alien politics." Zara let out a soft laugh, her first real one since Mark had approached her. "I'm Zara," she said, her voice softer now, the ice beginning to break. "I guess you're stuck with me for a while then. I don't have much else to do." Mark leaned back in his chair, his gaze thoughtful. "I don't mind at all. So, what's your story, Zara? You seem like someone who's seen a lot." Her smile faded just a little and she looked away, staring at the crowds that still avoided her. "I used to be someone who was looked up to, someone who led warriors, fought battles, and made decisions that shaped our people. But now," she trailed off, her voice barely above a whisper, "now I'm just a reminder of what's lost. A burden." Mark's heart ached at her words, but he didn't know how to make them go away. He wasn't a healer, wasn't someone with all the answers, but he could at least be a listening ear. "I don't think you're a burden," he said gently, his voice steady. "Sometimes things don't go the way we plan, and it doesn't mean we lose who we are. You're still Zara, and that's enough." She met his eyes then, and for a second Mark could see the hesitation in them, as though she wasn't sure if she believed him or if she even believed in herself anymore. But something in the way he spoke, genuine, unwavering, seemed to reach her. "I used to believe that," she said softly, "but it's hard to hold on to when everyone else treats you like you're nothing." Mark's hand shifted slightly closer to hers, though he didn't touch her. He just let the quiet connection settle between them. "Maybe it's time you let someone else show you what you're worth. I'm not leaving, Zara. I'm here for you." For the first time in a long while, Zara felt something stir within her, a flicker of hope that had long been extinguished. She didn't say anything right away, but she didn't have to. Her gaze softened, and in that moment she didn't feel quite so alone. The days that followed felt strangely comfortable for Zara. Mark continued to visit her in the marketplace, sitting with her during the quiet moments, offering companionship when everyone else turned their backs. It was like he was the one person who saw her for who she truly was, a person with thoughts, feelings, and a history. She was no longer just the paralyzed alien woman in a chair or the outcast. To Mark, she was Zara. Despite the warmth that Mark brought, Zara still struggled with the idea of letting herself be seen. Every time she glanced around, the pitying looks from the other tar, the mocking whispers, still stung. It was hard to believe that Mark could truly care about her, someone so far from the vibrant warrior she used to be. But little by little, his kindness began to chip away at the walls she'd built around herself. One evening, after a long day of quietly watching the sun dip below the horizon of New Coro, Zara and Mark found themselves alone at a small cafe far away from the busy market. The soft glow of alien lanterns lit the space around them, and the night air felt cool against Zara's skin. She had to admit, she enjoyed these moments of quiet peace. With Mark, she didn't feel like she was just a reminder of loss. She felt like she had a future, even if she couldn't quite picture what it looked like yet. Mark smiled at her from across the table, his eyes bright with curiosity. "So, what's the deal with the tar? Why do they treat you like that?" Zara's smile faded just slightly, the question striking a chord. "It's complicated," she paused, letting her fingers play with the edge of her drink. "When I was a warrior, I was everything to them, strong, respected. But now they see me as weak. I'm not who I used to be, and I'm a reminder of their fear that even the strongest can be brought down." Mark's brow furrowed in concern, his gaze softening. "Zara, I don't know much about your world, but I know this. Strength isn't just in physical power. And what happened to you, it doesn't change who you are. You're still a warrior in your own right. You just have to believe it." She shook her head, trying to laugh it off. "It's easy for you to say. You're human, Mark. You don't understand the weight of this, how much it hurts to be seen as nothing." Mark's hand gently touched hers across the table, his fingers warm against her cold skin. The touch was so simple, yet it sent a jolt of warmth through her. "I might not understand it fully," he said quietly, "but I understand what it's like to feel like you don't belong. I've spent my life trying to prove myself on Earth in this galaxy, but no one, not even the strongest, should have to prove themselves alone. I'm here, Zara, and I'm not going anywhere." Zara's chest tightened, her heart racing at his words. She pulled her hand back slightly, trying to steady herself. "Mark, I don't know how to trust this, how to trust you. I've been let down so many times, and I can't keep opening up only to be pushed away." Mark leaned in, his eyes searching hers. "Then let me prove it to you. Let me show you that I'm not like them. You don't have to carry this burden by yourself." The sincerity in his voice was undeniable, and for the first time in so long, Zara felt a flicker of hope. But she pushed it down, unwilling to let herself fall into something she might never be able to hold on to. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "I'm scared." Mark smiled gently, his voice low. "I know, but I'll be here with you every step of the way. You don't have to do this alone, Zara." For a moment they sat in silence, the weight of his words hanging between them. The air was thick with emotion, and Zara's heart felt like it was being pulled in 1,000 different directions. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust him, but her past, her scars, they were all she had left. She glanced up at Mark, her breath catching in her throat. "I want to believe you, Mark. I really do. But how do I know I'm not just a pity project to you?" Mark's smile softened, and his hand reached out again, this time cupping her cheek gently. "You're not a project, Zara. You're a person. You're strong, you're brave, and you've been through things that most people could never imagine. You are worth so much more than just surviving. You deserve to live." Zara closed her eyes, feeling the truth of his words sink in. She felt a tear slip down her cheek, but it wasn't out of sadness. It was relief. She didn't know how to navigate these feelings, but for the first time in years, she didn't feel alone. When she opened her eyes again, Mark was still there, his gaze unwavering. "Let me in, Zara," he said quietly. "You're not alone anymore." Her heart pounded as she finally allowed herself to feel the connection between them, the connection that had been growing since the moment they met. Maybe, just maybe, she could learn to trust him, learn to trust herself again. "Okay," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mixture of hope and fear. "Okay, Mark, I'll try." He smiled, his expression filled with warmth. "That's all I ask." And in that moment, Zara felt something she hadn't felt in a long time, a sense of peace. She didn't know what the future held, but with Mark by her side, she was ready to take the next step. Days turned into weeks, and Mark and Zara spent more time together. Zara had become more than just a person Mark visited out of kindness. She was someone he genuinely wanted to know. Her strength, her vulnerability, her sharp mind, all of it fascinated him. He saw her as more than just a warrior who had lost everything. He saw her as a whole person, and that was something she hadn't felt in a long time. Zara, for her part, was starting to open up. Slowly, carefully, she began to trust Mark. The walls she'd built around her heart, brick by brick, were starting to crumble piece by piece. Mark never pushed her. He was patient. He was kind, and that made all the difference. One afternoon, Mark invited Zara to a quiet part of the city, a park, filled with alien trees and strange, glowing flowers. It wasn't far from the marketplace, but it felt like a different world altogether. It was peaceful, calm. Zara had never been there before, but she could feel the magic of the place as soon as they stepped into the clearing. "Do you come here often?" she asked, looking around in awe. Mark smiled. "I come when I need a break. It's not much, but it's peaceful. I thought you might like it." She smiled back at him, the warmth of his gesture melting the last of her doubts. "It's beautiful," she said softly. They sat down on a nearby bench, the soft hum of alien insects buzzing in the background. For a while, they just sat in silence, enjoying the moment. There was something comforting about the stillness between them, something that made Zara feel safe for the first time in a long while. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," Zara said, breaking the silence. She was looking down at her lap, her hands folded in her lap. Mark turned to face her, his expression gentle. "What part?" About, about not being a burden, about being someone who deserves more than just surviving." Mark's heart skipped a beat. He had always believed in her strength, but hearing her speak like this, hearing her believe it for herself, it was a moment of progress. He leaned in slightly, his voice low and sincere. "You are more than surviving, Zara. You've survived so much already. But that doesn't mean you have to keep doing it alone. You deserve to thrive, to feel alive. And I'm here to help you with that. To be by your side no matter what." Zara's eyes met his, and for the first time there was no hesitation in them. She was seeing him, really seeing him, not just as someone from another world, but as someone who genuinely cared for her. Someone who wanted to be with her. "I don't know if I can ever truly be the person I was," she whispered, her voice breaking just a little. "I used to be so strong. I used to feel so unstoppable. Now I'm just broken." Mark reached out, his hand gently resting on hers. "Zara, you're not broken, you're healing. And you don't have to be who you were to be amazing. You're incredible right now in this moment. You're still you. The woman who leads, who fights for what's right, who cares about the people around her. That's who you are." Zara looked down at their hands, her heart beating faster at the simplicity of his words. She had always believed that her worth was tied to her ability to fight, to be strong. But Mark saw something else in her, something deeper. "I don't know how to let go of the past," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to stop being the woman everyone wants me to be." Mark gently lifted her chin so that she was looking at him. "Zara, you don't have to be anyone but yourself. You don't need to prove anything. You don't need to carry the weight of the past anymore. Just be who you are now, because who you are now is enough. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't look away. For the first time in what felt like forever, Zara felt seen. She felt understood. She felt like she was worth something. "I've never met anyone like you, Mark," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You make me feel like I'm more than just my chair, like I'm still me." Mark smiled, his thumb gently brushing the back of her hand. "That's because you are, Zara. You're more than your past, your struggles, and your mistakes. You're the person I admire. You're the one I care about." Zara felt her heart swell at his words. She had spent so long hiding from the world, so long thinking she didn't have a place anymore. But Mark had shown her that she did. She didn't have to be what others expected her to be. She could be who she was, someone worthy of love, of care, and of happiness. Without thinking, she leaned in closer, her lips meeting his in a soft, tender kiss. It was slow, hesitant, but full of promise. A promise that no matter what had happened in the past, they would face the future together. When they pulled apart, their foreheads resting together, Zara whispered, "Thank you for believing in me." Mark smiled, his eyes sparkling. "Thank you for letting me." And in that moment, Zara knew that no matter what the future held, no matter how difficult it might be, they would face it together. She was no longer alone, and neither was he. Together, they were stronger than they could have ever been apart. The days following their kiss felt like a dream, yet Mark and Zara couldn't deny the shift between them. Something had changed. The connection that had begun with quiet conversations in the marketplace now felt like a steady pulse, growing stronger with each passing moment. There was no turning back now. They both knew that. Zara still struggled with her doubts, with the feeling that she wasn't the woman she used to be. But Mark had a way of easing those doubts, of reminding her that she was still worthy, still strong, still herself. And as they spent more time together, Zara began to believe it piece by piece. It wasn't easy, but it was happening. One evening, they found themselves walking through the quieter parts of New Coro, away from the busy streets and the alien marketplace. The path they walked was lined with soft glowing plants, their light shimmering under the dark sky, creating an otherworldly glow around them. It was peaceful, quiet, the perfect place for a moment of calm. Zara's wheelchair rolled smoothly over the cobblestone paths, and Mark walked alongside her, keeping pace with ease. They had become inseparable, sharing everything from late-night talks to simple walks through the alien city. For the first time in a long time, Zara felt like she was living again, not just existing. "It's strange," Zara said, her voice soft as she looked up at the stars above them. "I never thought I'd feel like this again. I've spent so long hiding, so long, letting the past control me." Mark smiled at her, his gaze kind. "You don't have to hide anymore. The past is part of who you are, but it doesn't have to define you. You're more than that. You're Zara, the one I've gotten to know, the one I admire." Zara's heart fluttered at his words. She had never imagined that someone, especially a human, could see her as more than just what she had lost. But Mark saw her. And for the first time in years, Zara realized she wasn't just the woman who had lost everything. She was the woman who could start anew. They continued walking in comfortable silence, the sound of their footsteps the only thing breaking the quiet. As they reached a small bridge that overlooked a shimmering river, Mark stopped and turned to face her. He gently placed his hands on the arms of her chair, his expression serious now, but soft. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said," Mark began. "About the future. I know it's scary, Zara. I know you've been through things that most people could never imagine, but I want to be there for you. I want to be the one who helps you look forward, not backward." Zara's breath caught in her throat, and for a moment she didn't know what to say. Mark had always been honest with her, but hearing him say it out loud, hearing the commitment in his voice, it was more than she could have ever hoped for. She had always been the one to fight battles on her own, but now she didn't have to. "You've already done so much for me, Mark," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly. But I'm scared, scared that I'll fall back into this darkness, that I'll never truly be the person I used to be, that I'll never be enough. Mark knelt down in front of her, his eyes locking with hers. Zara, you're more than enough. You always have been. You don't have to be anyone other than who you are right now. And I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Her heart raced in her chest. Every word he spoke was like a balm for the wounds she had carried for so long. She had never let herself believe that someone would love her, not after everything. But Mark had shown her the truth. He loved her, not because she was perfect, but because she was herself. And for the first time in a long time, Zara believed it. Tears welled up in her eyes, but this time they were tears of relief, not sadness. She reached out, her hand trembling slightly as it touched his cheek. "Thank you, Mark," she whispered. "Thank you for seeing me, for not giving up on me." Mark smiled softly, his heart swelling with emotion. He cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away the tears that had fallen. "I could never give up on you, Zara. Not now, not ever." And before either of them could say anything more, Mark leaned in, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that was soft, gentle, but full of promises for the future. It wasn't just a kiss of attraction. It was a kiss of understanding, of shared dreams and unspoken vows. When they pulled away, both of them were breathless, their hearts racing. Zara felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. For the first time in so long, she didn't feel like she was carrying the world alone. "I'm ready," she said quietly, her voice full of conviction. "I'm ready for whatever comes next." Mark grinned, his eyes full of pride. "Then let's face it together." As they stood there, hand in hand, looking out at the stars above them, Zara realized that the future wasn't as scary as it had once seemed. With Mark by her side, she was ready to take on whatever came their way. Together. Zara sat by the window, her hands resting on the arms of her wheelchair as she watched the stars outside the small apartment they now called home. It had been weeks since she had left the marketplace, and each day she felt stronger, more like herself again. Mark had been there every step of the way, supporting her in ways she never thought possible. As the soft hum of the ship filled the room, she couldn't help but smile as she thought about how much had changed in such a short time. She had gone from feeling like a shadow in the universe, invisible and unimportant, to someone who felt seen, loved, and cherished. Mark had brought her to Earth, showing her the simple joys of his world, introducing her to new places, and more importantly, showing her the kind of love she had always thought was reserved for the strong, the powerful, the perfect. But Mark had never seen her as anything less than amazing, and for that, Zara was eternally grateful. "Zara," Mark's voice called out softly as he stepped into the room, a tray of food in his hands. His smile was warm, genuine, and it made Zara's heart flutter like it had the first time they had met. "Hey," she said with a grin, her eyes brightening as she turned to him. "What's this, you cooking again?" Mark laughed, setting the tray down beside her. "I've been practicing. Thought I'd make you something nice. You've been working hard lately, so I figured you deserved a treat." She raised an eyebrow. "Practicing, huh? I'm a little scared now." He chuckled, sitting beside her. "Don't worry, I promise it won't be that bad. I've learned a few tricks from your people." Zara laughed softly as she took the first bite. Her eyes widened in surprise, then she grinned. "Okay, you were right. This is actually pretty good." Mark beamed, clearly proud of himself. "I told you, I've got some skills, you know." She leaned back, her hands resting on her lap as she looked at him. "You're amazing, Mark. I don't know what I would have done without you." Mark's smile softened. He reached over, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You wouldn't have needed anyone, Zara. You're stronger than you think, but I'm glad I could be here. For you, I want you to be happy, to see how incredible you really are." Zara felt her heart swell at his words. She had spent so much time pushing people away, convincing herself that she didn't need anyone. But with Mark, she didn't feel like she was a burden. She felt like she was enough, more than enough. I'm starting to believe you, Zara said quietly, her voice soft but full of emotion. I never thought I could feel like this again. Like I'm not just the woman in the chair or the one who was broken. Mark's expression grew serious, his voice tender. You were never broken, Zara. You've always been whole. I think you just needed someone to help you see it. She met his gaze, her heart fluttering. In that moment, all the fear and doubt she had carried for so long seemed to fade away. With Mark, she was allowed to be vulnerable, and for the first time it didn't feel like a weakness. It felt like strength. I love you, Mark, Zara whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Mark's eyes softened, and for a moment time seemed to stop. He reached out, gently cupping her face in his hands. I love you too, Zara, more than I ever thought I could love anyone. She closed her eyes, leaning into his touch. His hands were warm against her skin, grounding her in a way she hadn't known was possible. There was no pretension between them, no expectations, no barriers. It was just them, and it felt like everything. I don't know what the future holds, Zara said, her voice quieter now, but I'm not afraid anymore. Not with you by my side. Mark smiled, his thumb gently brushing her cheek. We'll face it together. Whatever happens, we'll handle it as a team. You don't have to carry anything alone. Zara's heart skipped a beat. The weight of everything, the loneliness, the pain, the years of self-doubt, began to lift. For the first time in a long time, she felt free. Not because her past was erased, but because she had finally accepted herself, and she had someone who loved her for who she was, not what she had been. Mark leaned in, his lips brushing against hers in a kiss that was slow, tender, and full of everything they hadn't yet said. It was a kiss of promises, a promise to be there to support each other, to love without hesitation. When they pulled apart, Zara rested her forehead against his, feeling a sense of peace settle over her. Thank you for showing me that love isn't just about what we were, but what we are now. Mark smiled, his eyes full of affection. And thank you for showing me that the best adventures don't always happen in faraway places. Sometimes, the real adventure is finding someone who makes you believe in yourself again. They sat together in comfortable silence, the stars outside casting a soft glow on the world around them. Zara wasn't sure where the future would take them, but for the first time, she didn't need to know. With Mark beside her, she felt ready for anything. Zara sat on the balcony, the cool breeze of the alien planet gently brushing her hair as the distant stars twinkled above. Her hands rested on the railing, and her mind wandered, lost in the moment. For the first time in a long while, she felt peace. The kind of peace she had never known in her old life as a warrior. The kind that came from knowing she was no longer alone, she was no longer just surviving. Mark had spent the past few days helping her get acclimated to their new life. They had left New Coro, the alien city that had been both a prison and a sanctuary for Zara, and had set off for a quieter place, a small cottage on a lush planet where no one knew them. It was the perfect place to start anew, far away from the whispers, the stares, and the mockery that had haunted Zara's every step. Mark had promised her that they'd face whatever came together, and so far he'd kept that promise. Zara's heart still ached with the weight of everything she had lost. The warrior who had once commanded armies, the strong leader who had fought for her people, she could never get those parts of herself back. But what she had found with Mark was something she never expected, something deeper than she had ever known. Mark walked out onto the balcony and stood next to her, his presence as comforting as always. He wasn't the typical hero she had once imagined. He didn't have alien powers or incredible strength. But there was something in the way he loved her, something in the way he cared for her, that made him her hero. The fact that he loved her, even when she felt broken, was something she would never take for granted. He leaned against the railing next to her and smiled. "What are you thinking about?" Zara turned to him, her smile gentle. "I was just thinking about how different everything is now. It feels like a lifetime ago that I was leading warriors into battle when I thought I had all the answers." Mark chuckled softly, turning to face her. I think you still have the answers. You just needed to find a new way to lead. You've always been a warrior, Zara, but now you're leading yourself, and that's more than enough. Zara's heart swelled at his words. I don't know if I feel like a warrior anymore. I feel lost sometimes, like I'm not the person I used to be. Mark reached over and took her hand in his thumb brushing gently against her skin. I don't think you've lost anything. You've just changed like we all do. But the essence of who you are, your strength, your heart, your ability to love, none of that's gone. You're still the same Zara, the woman I've come to admire, the woman I've fallen in love with. Her breath caught in her throat at his words. She had always feared that she would never be worthy of love again. But Mark had shown her that love didn't have to be earned through strength or perfection. It could be given freely, just because someone saw you for who you truly were. I don't deserve you, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Mark's expression softened, his eyes warm with understanding. You don't have to deserve me, Zara, you have me, and I'll always be here, for better or worse. Zara felt her heart race, her chest tightening with the weight of the love she felt for him. She had never imagined a life where she could be truly loved, not just for what she did, but for who she was. But with Mark, she had found that love, and she wasn't going to let it slip away. I love you, Mark, she whispered, her voice shaking slightly. I love you more than I ever thought I could love anyone. Mark's smile deepened and he leaned in, his lips brushing against hers in a soft kiss. The kiss was slow, tender, and full of everything they hadn't said. It was a promise that no matter what came their way, they would face it together. When they pulled apart, Mark rested his forehead against hers. I love you too, Zara, and I always will. Zara closed her eyes, savoring the moment. She had been afraid to believe in a future, to believe in love. But now, with Mark by her side, she realized that her future wasn't as dark as she had once believed. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. So what's next for us? She asked, her voice light but filled with hope. Mark grinned, his eyes twinkling. Next? Well, next we start our adventure. We've got the whole universe ahead of us, Zara, and as long as we're together, I think we can handle anything. Zara smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. For the first time in a long time, she didn't feel like a stranger to herself. She felt whole. With Mark by her side, she was ready for whatever came next. As they stood together, hand in hand, under the alien stars, Zara knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. And whatever the future held, they would face it together. As the months passed, Zara and Mark continued to build their life together. Their small cottage on the peaceful planet became more than just a home. It became a symbol of everything they had fought for, a place where Zara could finally feel free from the ghosts of her past. They spent their days exploring the planet's hidden corners, Zara learning to move beyond her limitations with Mark's constant support. The bond between them only grew stronger. Mark had shown her what it meant to love without conditions, to love without fear. And in return, Zara had given him something he didn't know he was missing, someone who could see him for who he truly was, beyond the human race, beyond the mission. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Mark took Zara's hand and led her to the hill outside their cottage. The sky was painted with warm oranges and pinks, a perfect reflection of the love they had found. I've never been happier, Zara said, her voice full of emotion. Mark smiled, brushing a stray hair from her face. Me neither. This is just the beginning, Zara. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together. And with that, they embraced the future, side by side, heart to heart.